He is 48 years old. She is 30. And on a random Tuesday night, in front of millions of people scrolling their phones, Claressa Shields, an undefeated world champion, a woman who can drop a grown adult in the ring with one clean shot, walked into a trap she never saw coming. Not a fist, not an uppercut, a four-word sentence. For words that unraveled a marriage the internet spent almost a decade calling a fairy tale. For words that turned Papoose from the loyal husband of the year into the punchline of every group chat in America. For words that made Remy sit back, sip her coffee, and let the entire situation cook itself in its own grease. If you thought you knew the story, throw it out. The receipts that dropped this month don't just rewrite the ending. They rewrite everything. Every prison visit, every anniversary post, every black love caption, all of it. And by the time we're done here, you're going to see exactly why the woman with the belts is the one who got knocked out cold, and why the woman who did 8 years behind bars is walking away with the only trophy that no boxing ring in this country can hand out. Her dignity, in full, untouched. Welcome in. You're locked into the channel where the tea comes hot, the receipts come uncut, and we never, and I mean never, dilute the drama with sugar. Every single thing I'm about to break down for you comes from public statements, public interviews, and public posts these three grown adults chose to put out into the world themselves. Nobody's making anything up here. They did the work for us. All I'm doing is arranging the pieces on the table so you can finally see the puzzle they've been trying to convince you doesn't exist. If this is your first time landing on the channel, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button before you scroll past. And while your thumb is already down there, tag the friend who always falls for the smooth-talking married man with the "we're separated on paper but not really" story. Trust me, she needs this one taped to her forehead in permanent marker. This video is a public service announcement dressed up as a gossip breakdown, and by the end of it, you are going to be very, very glad you stayed. Okay, deep breath. Because before we can even get to the champion's meltdown, before we can talk about the grocery store scene that had the whole internet clutching their pearls, we have to rewind. All the way back. Because this mess didn't start this month. It didn't start this year. It started around a decade ago, when Remy was still sitting inside a cell serving out an 8-year sentence, and a rapper named Papoose was building a public persona on the back of her absence. Every prison visit was a post. Every anniversary was a caption. Every interview was a monologue about waiting for his queen. And listen, for a minute it worked. Women online were in tears. Men were getting side-eyed at the dinner table for not loving like Papoose loved Remy. The whole thing became a cultural template. A blueprint. A brand. It was a marketing campaign disguised as a marriage, and everybody, including me if we're being honest, bought a copy. Remy comes home in 2014. They have a daughter shortly after. On paper, it's the ending everyone wanted. On paper. But here's the first quiet clue that most people missed at the time. When a couple who used to post everything suddenly goes silent online, that isn't peace. That's a pressure cooker with the lid still screwed on tight. And a decade later, we're finally hearing the whistle blow. What looked like maturity was actually management. What looked like privacy was actually damage control. What looked like a queen taking her throne back was actually a woman coming home to a house that had been rearranged by somebody else while she was gone. Now, fast forward to right now. Because the entire domino chain we're about to walk through, every accusation, every clapback, every syndrome Claressa Shields tried to invent live on camera, every false narrative line Papoose has hidden behind for 2 straight months. All of it, every crumb, traces back to one 4-word sentence. Papoose pays my bills. That's it. That's the fuse. Claressa Shields, undefeated world champion, multi-time Olympic gold medalist, one of the most decorated boxers this country has ever produced, sat down in front of a camera, looked straight into the lens and said with her whole chest that Papoose pays her bills. Her mortgage, her car note, her insurance, her flights, everything down to the last dollar. She said it like it was a flex. She said it like every woman in the comments was supposed to nod along and pop a champagne bottle for her. And to be fair, some of them did. But the rest of the internet? The rest of the internet caught something Claressa Shields didn't. When a woman brags, publicly on a platform millions of people are watching, that a married man is paying her bills, that isn't a love letter. That is a confession with lipstick on it. That is receipts wearing a Sunday dress. That is a woman announcing she is somebody's mistress and dressing it up as somebody's queen. And once those words hit the internet did what the internet does. It went to work. And by the time the sun came up the next morning, the entire Papoose is a good man narrative that had been carefully constructed over a decade of magazine covers and interview couches was on fire in the front yard. Papoose comes out swinging. But watch how he swings. That's the tell. He doesn't come out and say, no, that's not true. He doesn't come out and say, she's lying. He comes out and says, and I'm quoting the man directly, false narratives. Then he pivots. He talks about how he's always been fly. Heavy jewelry. Nice cars. Bought his first house before his first record deal. Talks about how he doesn't play those types of games. Talks about how, listen, moving on forward from that. When a grown man needs 4 full sentences, an entire highlight reel of his own accomplishments, and a wardrobe check to avoid saying the word, no. That is not a denial. That is a dance. That is a 2-step in dress shoes. And here's the truth nobody in either camp wants to hear. Maybe neither of them is telling the full truth. Maybe he's paying some of it and she's paying some of it and both of them are inflating the parts that make them look good and shrinking the parts that make them look bad. That's the most likely version of every celebrity money story ever recorded. But keep watching, because it gets so much worse than a money argument. So much worse. I want to slow down here for a second, because this next piece actually got me. Genuinely. Think about the story we all bought into. A man visiting his wife in prison week after week, year after year. 8 years. 8 full birthdays she spends behind glass. 8 Christmases she spends in a jumpsuit. And every single one of those years, other inmates would walk up to her in that yard and ask the question every incarcerated woman dreads. He's still around? And Remy Ma got to look them in the eye and say yes. She got to say yes because Papoose made sure she could. I understand why the world fell for that story. I fell for it too. For a whole minute I fell for it. But here's the thing about fairy tales. They don't survive freedom. The second Remy Ma walked out of those gates and back into the real world, the timer on all of that loyalty started ticking down fast. The same man who allegedly held her down for 8 straight years apparently couldn't hold his own attention for 8 straight months once she was standing in front of him in the flesh. And listen, that is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern with a passport. That is a certain kind of man who is only ever fully in love when the woman he claims to love isn't fully available. The distance was the attraction. The moment the distance closed, so did his interest. Fast forward again. Their daughter grows old enough to head off to school. Both parents suddenly have free time on their hands. And free time inside a marriage that's already leaking at the seams is never, I promise you, never just free time. It is opportunity. It is temptation. It is a door that keeps getting left open until finally somebody walks through it. Papoose says Remy Ma cheated first. Remy Ma's side of the story tells it differently. Her camp says the whole timeline has been flipped upside down to protect his image. And honestly, at a certain point, does it even matter who lit the match? Because from where I am sitting, both of them had lighters in their pockets and both of them were standing in a house full of gasoline. Nobody in this triangle is walking out of here with clean hands. Nobody. Not one of them. And Papoose, bless him because he really thought he was doing damage control, is about to say a whole lot more than any smart man in his position should be saying out loud on camera to a man with a live YouTube channel. Get comfortable. Because he opens his mouth and out it all falls. He says he never wanted to speak on this. He says he never opened his mouth for months out of respect. He says the only reason he's talking now is because Remy Ma allegedly mentioned his children, and once a man's children get pulled into it, all the gentleman rules go out the window. Okay, fine. That is a fair frame. But then he keeps talking, and keeps talking. And once Papoose starts talking, Papoose does not stop. He says the affair he's currently under fire for, the one with the world champion, that started in 2022. That is not last month. That is not we recently connected. That is years. That is entire seasons of a life that overlapped with a marriage that was still on paper, and by the way still is on paper legally intact. And then, casually like he's ordering a sandwich, Papoose adds a sentence that nobody asked for. He says that wasn't the first time. He says he's caught Remy Ma cheating numerous times since she came home. Numerous. That word is doing a whole lot of work in that sentence. That word alone rewrites the entire 8-year loyal wife narrative that was built behind her. Then he goes deeper, because Papoose does not know when to stop. He says he tried to be intimate with his wife one night and she slipped out of the bed without a single word. Just slid out. No explanation. Went back to sleep in another room where a female friend was staying that particular night. He says he laid there in the dark and thought to himself, and I'm not making this quote up, this is verbatim, he thought, I ain't no rocket scientist, but this ain't add up. And okay, Papoose, maybe you aren't a rocket scientist, but you are also not stupid. Because he says shortly after that, he came home to an empty house. Their daughter was in a room by herself. And Remy Ma was allegedly somewhere else entirely, with somebody else entirely, doing something that was allegedly none of Papoose's business anymore. That's what he says. Not a rumor. Not a screenshot from a burner account. Not a whisper from a blog. His own eyes. That is the story he is telling on camera. And once he told it, he could not untell it. That version of Remy Ma, the loyal, ride or die, wait for my king wife the internet built a whole cultural altar to. That version publicly cracked in half the second Papoose opened his mouth to defend himself. Now here's the part one want you to sit with. Because this is where the story stops being a two-person soap opera and starts being a three-person disaster. This is where the champion walks in. This is where the third rail of this entire situation gets fully exposed. Claressa Shields, 30 years old. Undisputed at multiple weights. A woman who has stood across the ring from grown fighters twice her size and made them regret sending in the paperwork. A woman who has an Olympic story that is genuinely inspiring. A woman who, in any other timeline, would be having the year of her life right now. Instead, she is out here filming an Instagram story inside a grocery store with a married man. Papoose is in frame. He is grinning like a kid who found the candy aisle. He is eating grapes straight off the produce shelf like a toddler at a birthday party. He is picking up yogurts and moving on to bananas, and Claressa Shields is laughing behind the camera saying, and I'm quoting again, I'm about to cook for me, my man, and my family. My man. In a grocery store. Off somebody else's marriage. Filming it. Posting it. Publishing it. Distributing it to millions of people who then screenshotted it and forwarded it to more millions. And here's the part that makes the internet lose its entire mind. This isn't some random man Claressa Shields met at a boxing gala. This isn't a stranger she stumbled into at a cafe in Miami. This is her friend's husband. Her friend. The woman she reportedly used to sit next to at events. The woman she was reportedly photographed hugging at concerts. The woman who reportedly warned her more than once, according to online receipts flying around at this exact moment, about the exact type of woman Papoose historically chases. The internet dug up those photos in about 6 minutes flat. And the second those photos hit the timeline, the whole vibe changed. This wasn't a love story anymore. This wasn't a grown woman lives her truth story anymore. This was a betrayal story. And betrayal stories don't get sympathy from a courtroom audience. Betrayal stories get subpoenaed. Claressa Shields, in one grocery store clip, wrote a footnote onto her own Wikipedia page that the algorithm will never, ever let her outrun. Now, Claressa Shields could have taken the L quietly. She could have gone dark for a week. She could have let her PR team draft a boring, one-paragraph corporate apology and slid back into training camp. She could have done what every crisis manager on the planet would have told her to do. Say nothing, post nothing, film nothing, and let the news cycle move on to the next mess. But that is not what Claressa Shields did. Claressa Shields, world champion, chose instead to hop on live and invent a brand new field of medicine. Live, in real time, with the whole internet watching, taking notes, and cross-referencing every syllable. Ready? She said the people criticizing her have ugly girl syndrome. She said she doesn't have ugly girl syndrome because she has, and I quote, this is a real quote from a real interview, she has I beat a girl syndrome. She has I whoop a girl syndrome. She has I love my man syndrome. She has whatever Papoose says goes syndrome. She listed off syndromes for almost 2 straight minutes like she was reading a textbook nobody else was allowed to see. She rattled off diagnoses faster than an urgent care doctor at closing time. She invented more medical conditions in that one clip than the entire American Medical Association has published this year. And in all of that word salad, in all of those clinical-sounding, made-up syndromes, do you notice what was missing? At no point did she say, "I did not sleep with a married man." At no point did she say, "This is not what it looks like." At no point did she say, "I did not knowingly get involved with somebody else's husband." At no point did she say, "Nothing happened." Not one single syndrome she named actually answered the accusation. Not one. That is not a denial. That is a magic trick. That is a woman performing self-esteem loud enough to drown out the actual question. And this is where I have to be honest with you, because I am not here to pile onto Claressa Shields for the sport of it. I am not. What she is doing right now is what a lot of women do the first time they realize they are the side of the situation and not the main story of it. They overperform confidence. They stack affirmations. They talk about their bodies, their bags, their bank accounts, their beauty routines, their pedigrees. They will list every single accomplishment on their resume before they will look you in the eye and answer one single yes or no question. Because underneath all of that noise, they know. They know. They know exactly what they got themselves into, and they know exactly how it is going to end, and they know that the moment they stop performing, they are going to have to feel it. And Claressa Shields, in that live, sounded like a woman who knows exactly where she is standing in the story and cannot afford, professionally, personally, or emotionally, to admit it. That is not a champion in the ring. That is a woman on the ropes. That is a woman fighting with her hands down because she is out of gas. Okay, take another beat with me, because I need you to zoom out for a second. Because if you only look at this as three people fighting on the internet, you miss the whole picture. Widen the lens. Way out. This is a story about how a marriage that a whole generation of women copied and pasted onto their own vision boards was rotting from the inside long before any of us got to see the mold on the outside. This is a story about how a black love fairy tale that was sold to us as gospel truth was, according to at least one of the two people inside it, a serial cheating situation for years. This is a story about how a world champion, a real, decorated, historically great athlete, is currently being used as the newest chapter of a much older pattern that has repeated itself in her boyfriend's life more than once. And this is a story about how the woman who was supposed to be the loser in this arrangement, the wife who got left, is quietly, methodically, and without saying a single desperate word, walking away as the actual winner. Let me walk you through why Remy Ma is winning. Because Remy Ma has done something very few people in a public breakup ever pull off. She has said almost nothing directly. She has posted almost nothing directly. She has clapped back almost nothing directly. And in doing that, in doing absolutely nothing on camera, she has forced Papoose and Claressa Shields to do all the talking, all the explaining, all the tap dancing, all the syndrome inventing on camera in front of the whole internet while she goes about the business of building. New show reportedly in the works. New app rumored to be launching. New collaborations reportedly stacking in the pipeline. New chapter. New everything. She is behaving like a woman who understands, in her bones, that the best possible revenge against a public breakup is not a diss track. It is not a receipts dump. It is not a tell-all interview. It is a full quarter of good news. She is glowing while they are grinding. She is winning while they are explaining. And every single day this drama drags on. The contrast between her energy and their energy gets more embarrassing for them and more flattering for her. That is not accidental. That is not luck. That is a strategy. Now, some of you are going to say, hold on, Remy Ma is not innocent here either. And you are absolutely right. According to Papoose, she cheated too. Multiple times. And if his version is even fractionally true, then Remy Ma also does not walk out of this with a halo hovering over her head. Fine. I am not here to hand out halos. What I am telling you is that even in a scenario where both people inside the marriage were unfaithful, one of them is still choosing dignity in public and the other is out here yogurt shopping with a world champion on Instagram. Behavior is a choice, and behavior is receipts. In a world where everybody is a little bit guilty, the only currency left is composure. And Remy Ma has more composure right now than the other two combined and doubled. Let's talk about Papoose for a minute. Because Papoose is 48 years old. 48. He has been in the industry for over 2 decades. He knows exactly what he is doing. He knows exactly what to say in an interview. He knows exactly which words to use and which words to skip. He knows exactly how to frame a story so he ends up as the misunderstood victim rather than the guy who left. He knows exactly which type of woman is going to fall for the "my marriage is basically already over" script, because he has, allegedly, run this play more than once before. That is not romance. That is a playbook. And playbooks don't get written after the game. They get written before it. Somewhere in all of this, Claressa Shields is currently walking through a play that was drawn up long before her name got printed on the jersey. She just doesn't know it yet. Or maybe she does know it and she doesn't care. Either way, the outcome is the same. And the outcome is not going to be the happy ending she thinks she's boxing her way toward. Here is where I have to be careful, and I want you to hear me clearly. Because the internet has a nasty habit of turning grown women into monsters the second a man decides he is finished with the last one. I do not want to do that with Claressa Shields. I really don't. She has accomplished things in her sport that most people watching this could not do in 10 lifetimes. She is genuinely, historically great inside those ropes. What she is doing outside of those ropes right now is a separate conversation. And the separate conversation is this. A 30-year-old woman is publicly building her identity around a 48-year-old man who has a documented pattern of walking out of long relationships the second things get comfortable. And she is doing it while filming grocery store videos and inventing syndromes on live streams. That is not a love story. That is a warning label with mascara on. That is a red flag doing choreography. And this is why the internet is not letting this one go. Because everybody watching knows somebody like this. Everybody. Everybody has a cousin, a sister, a coworker, a homegirl from high school who fell for the smooth-talking older man with the "we're basically not together anymore" story. Everybody knows how that story ends. It doesn't end at the altar. It doesn't end at the honeymoon. It ends at the group chat with a screenshot of him texting somebody new. And what Claressa Shields is currently learning, in front of millions of witnesses, in the harshest possible spotlight, is that the same qualities that make her unbeatable inside a boxing ring, her fearlessness, her ego, her refusal to duck a punch, those are the exact qualities that get a woman shredded in a situation like this one. A boxing match rewards a woman who runs at the danger. A love triangle punishes her for it. Different sport, different rules, different scoreboard. And she is trying to fight this one with the wrong gloves on. Okay, let's talk about the receipts nobody is talking about. Because underneath all the syndromes, underneath all the grocery store videos, underneath all the false narrative dances, there are a few very specific pieces of information floating around online that keep coming back up, and I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't lay them side by side on the same table. 1. Papoose and Remy are, according to Papoose's own on-camera statements, not legally divorced yet. 2. Papoose has publicly said Claressa Shields is his girlfriend and they are dating. Openly. In interviews. On tape. 3. Claressa Shields has said on camera that Papoose is paying her bills. In detail. With specifics. 4. Remy has said, publicly and without lifting a finger to hide it, that Claressa Shields is not being straightforward with her fans and that a lot of what has been posted about the situation was manufactured. Put those 4 facts next to each other. Just look at them. Now ask yourself the question everybody in the comments has been asking. How does a legally still married man have a public girlfriend who is being financially supported while the estranged wife has to sit here and read about it on the timeline like the rest of us? That is the puzzle. And when you actually piece it together, it stops looking like a messy modern romance and it starts looking like something a whole lot uglier. It starts looking like a man who never actually planned to be alone. He just planned to swap. Now let me say the harder part, because I think about this every time one of these stories breaks. There is a very specific kind of woman these men chase after a long-term partner. They do not chase the same body type she has. They chase the opposite. They do not chase the same career she has. They chase the opposite. They do not chase a woman who reminds them of the woman they just left, because that would require them to look in a mirror. They chase the exact opposite so they can convince themselves that what they had before was never who they really were. Look at the pattern. Really look at it. Remy is a Bronx-raised, rap industry veteran. A woman who has been through prison walls and come out with her identity intact. Claressa Shields is a Michigan-raised world champion boxer with the physique of an elite athlete and a fan base built entirely inside a completely different sports ecosystem. Different world, different rooms, different everything. That is not coincidence. That is contrast shopping. That is a man buying a new life so he doesn't have to look at the old one. And every single woman watching this who has ever been the old one already knows exactly what I mean. And you know what makes it worse? Papoose is not even being subtle about it. He is in interviews right now telling anybody with a microphone that Remy Ma won't let him see his daughter, that Remy Ma is miserable, that Remy Ma is the reason his life has become chaos. Meanwhile, Remy Ma is on stage performing to sold-out crowds, in the studio releasing new music, and posting nothing but her business. One of these two people is behaving like the victim. The other one is behaving like a boss. And I will let you decide which is which. Actually, no, I won't. Because I already know which is which, and so do you, and so does everybody with two functioning eyes and a working internet connection. What Papoose is doing is not describing his wife. He is describing his own reflection and hoping nobody in the audience notices which face is which. Now let me pull up a piece that has been buried underneath the louder headlines but deserves its own spotlight. Because there is a rumor circulating right now, and I am going to be very careful with how I frame this, because it is a rumor and I have no way to verify it in this moment. But there is a rumor circulating that Claressa Shields may be pregnant. That has not been confirmed by her camp. It has not been denied by her camp. It is being whispered about across gossip channels and DM threads by people who claim to be close to the situation. If it turns out to be true, and I am saying if, then this entire triangle stops being a temporary scandal and becomes a permanent life event. If that rumor is real, Claressa Shields is not stepping into a boyfriend. She is stepping into a co-parenting situation with a man who is currently on his second on-record co-parenting battle. Read that sentence again, slowly, because that is the actual math of what she may be signing up for. And if any part of her camp is watching this is the moment to circle back and check in. Here is where we start closing this out, because I want to leave you with something more useful than a hot take. I want to leave you with a lesson because a lot of the women watching this right now are watching for a reason. You know a Papoose? You do. Maybe not the rapper, but you know a version of him. You know the older, established, charming man who told you his marriage was basically over. You know the man who paid your rent and called it love. You know the man who ate grapes off the produce shelf while you laughed on camera and told the world he was yours. And you know, the same way Claressa Shields is about to know how that story tends to end. It does not end at a wedding. It does not end at a shared last name. It ends at another Instagram live months from now with him doing damage control about the next one. Do not be the next chapter in somebody else's playbook. Be the author of your own. Write yourself in as the protagonist, not the plot twist. And to Claressa Shields specifically, because I hope somebody in her circle shows her this video, you are a world champion. You are one of one. You are the best there is at what you do inside those ropes, and history has already booked its opinion of you. You do not need a 48-year-old rapper's bills-paid affirmation to prove your value in this world. You beat down grown women for a living. Do not lose to a man in a grocery store because he handed you a grape and called it groceries. You are worth so much more than being the plot twist in somebody else's second marriage. You are worth so much more than filming yourself into a corner you cannot fight your way out of. Please, somebody who loves her, hand her the phone. To Remy Ma, keep doing exactly what you are doing. Silence is a weapon and you are wielding it like a black belt on a mission. Every new deal you announce, every stage you walk on, every song that charts is doing more damage to their PR than any diss track ever could. Keep glowing. Keep grinding. Keep letting them talk themselves into deeper and deeper holes with their own microphones. The best clapback is a bigger check, and you are cashing them faster than they can process the loss. And to Papoose, my brother, sit down. Close your mouth. Every time you open it, you make it worse for everybody in your last name. Every interview you do adds another rope for the internet to hang you with. If you loved your family, you would go be quiet with your family. If you don't love your family, then at the very least be quiet out of respect for the one you are trying to build with the champion. Because right now, you are actively bulldozing both. You are the only person in this triangle who has said too much, and the only person who is still choosing to say more. Read the room, my brother. The room is not on your side. The room has never been on your side. The room has been waiting for you to be quiet since the second grocery clip went up. So let's bring this whole thing home. For little words started a war that has now consumed the front page of every gossip site in the country. A black love story that a whole generation of women copied into their own lives turned out to be, by the husband's own admission, a serial cheating situation for years. A world champion decided to hop on live and invent an entire fake medical dictionary rather than answer one simple question. And a woman the world spent almost a decade calling the loyal one is currently the only person in this triangle behaving with any actual dignity, any actual poise, and any actual understanding of how public life works. That is not a love triangle. That is a masterclass in who wins the long game. That is a demonstration in real time of what class looks like when the cameras are pointed at somebody else. And it is a reminder that in every single one of these public messes, the woman who says the least usually walks away with the most. Now I want you down in the comments. And I don't want a mumbled little, interesting. I want you loud. I want you specific. I want you unhinged. Tell me, are you Team Remy Ma, the woman who waited 8 years and is now silently outclassing everyone in the room? Are you Team Claressa Shields, the champion who genuinely believes she is walking into a great love story instead of walking into someone else's ending? Or are you Team all three of them need therapy, a lawyer, and a nap in that order? Pick a side. Drop it below in caps if you feel it. Drag your friends in and make them pick too. Because I am reading every single one of these, and the wildest, funniest, most unfiltered take is getting a shout out in the next video I post. Yes, by name. Yes, on camera. Consider yourself warned. If this one hit, and if you learned anything about the men who love bomb their way through long relationships, smash that like button so hard your phone thinks you're mad at it personally. Subscribe if you're new around here, because the very next video is going to break down what one of Papoose's oldest collaborators just allegedly said in a private group chat that leaked last night. And it is worse, measurably worse on a whole different scale of bad than anything you just heard in this one. Send this video to the group chat. Send it to the friend who thinks her married situationship is different. Send it to the cousin who's dating somebody's husband and calling it her season. Send it to the auntie who told you 15 years ago that fairy tales don't survive freedom, because that auntie was right the entire time and she deserves her flowers. We are just getting started with this saga. There are more receipts still coming. More clips still leaking. More alleged text messages still floating around inboxes I do not have access to yet. And when they land, you will hear about it here first. Until then, protect your peace, protect your name, protect your bills, protect your good friends from the wolves in your own group, and never, ever, ever, ever film a grocery store video with somebody else's husband. I promise you, the internet will find it. It always does. It always, always does. One more thing before I let you go, because I keep thinking about this and I don't want to end without saying it. There is a specific pain in watching a woman you know is talented, is decorated, is beloved, is undeniable. Watching her voluntarily hand her own name over to a story that is going to cost her more than she can even see yet. Claressa Shields did not need this. She did not. Whatever she thought she was gaining by dating Papoose in public, whatever validation she thought she was earning, whatever softness she thought she was finally being handed after a life spent being the toughest person in every room she walked into, none of that was worth the trade. Because a world champion should not be a footnote in another woman's divorce story. Ever. Under any circumstances. And if she reads this, or if somebody around her reads this, I hope this is the sentence that sticks. You are too much of a woman to be somebody's redemption arc. And Remy Ma, one more note before I close. Whatever you did or didn't do inside that marriage, whatever version of the story is the true one, the way you have carried yourself through this last month has been a public service to every woman who has ever been publicly embarrassed by a man who spent years pretending to be better than he was. You have shown a generation of women that you do not have to explain, react, or perform to reclaim your own narrative. You just have to keep working, keep building, keep glowing. And you have shown them that silence, when it is used correctly, is louder than any microphone in the room. Thank you for that. Genuinely. From every woman who has ever needed the receipt of what recovery in public actually looks like. Okay. That is the tea. That is the whole pot, brewed hot, poured slow, and served with no lid on it. Take care of yourselves out there. Don't date married men. Don't film in grocery stores. Don't invent syndromes on live. And don't ever forget that the woman who is quietest in a public fight is usually the one holding the last card. I'm out. Talk soon. Same time. Same channel. Same tea.